Xbox drops a game and Windows is going green. Happy Friday. It's Friday. That means tomorrow's Saturday, which means we can all sleep in unless you have a kid with a game they got to go play. Baseball, soccer, football. Well, probably not football this time of the year. But whatever. It is Friday. Hopefully everybody had a wonderful week. A little bit going on this week. It is the end of April. We got developer conferences right around the corner. It's also earnings season. And so there's a decent amount to dive into, but not maybe the busiest week. Sometimes I say like, hey, there's a ton to talk. Yeah, there's some big things, but not everything is going on here. So the first thing, let's just dive into the tech news, is that PyTorch now has native ARM support on Windows, which is a big deal. So PyTorch is huge in the machine learning arena or community, and now can be run natively on Windows ARM devices, taking advantage of those CPUs. So that's a pretty big deal. Now, this little thing here, the green screen of death, I'm not sure. I'm wondering if it's going to be green when it comes out. It'll probably be blue. Because green screen of death is indicative of being on the inside of program. Then it turns blue when it's on the proper release channel. Anyways, Microsoft is changing up their blue screen of death. Now, they are very clearly removing any indication that it's Microsoft that's doing this. Now, I'm not sure if all of this is related to some incidents over the summer. You might remember when global airlines and everybody else was kicked offline when some cybersecurity tools went haywire, and then Microsoft was getting the blame, and it wasn't really Microsoft. But maybe I'm not quite sure. But they were definitely saying maybe we shouldn't be letting Windows take the fall for this, because traditionally, when your device blue screens, which admittedly, and I think worth acknowledging, is less. It doesn't happen nearly as much these days anymore. You assume there's hey, Windows crashed, but actually it can be hardware related. In that case, it's not Windows, but then Windows gets the blame. And so I wonder if this is Microsoft starting to pull back and saying look, it may not always be us, the reason why your machine just blew up in front of your face. So yeah, just something to pay attention to. The other thing Microsoft is doing here is they're now spotted by the friends over at Neowin, that sometimes you can actually set up your new tab page in Edge to just start showing Copilot by default. We are in the midst, and I mean the thick of the soup, if you will, of companies touting how many daily active users of their AI service they have. So Google just had its earnings, and Microsoft will do its earnings, and all of these companies are going to be talking about, hey, guess how many people are using our AI every single day? And so this is an easy, cheap way for them to get daily active users, because how many times do you open a new tab and has that experience? So they can just gobble that all up and say, hey, that's a daily active user for us of Copilot, because they looked at it, they saw it, and it reminds me of how they say Cortana was used by 300 million people, every day or month, something like that, which we all know is a fabricated number anyways. But anyways, this is something that I expect to see Microsoft start pushing more. Now, the other interesting side of this is traditionally that new tab experience has been MSN, which is something they can monetize, which is something that makes them money, right? Because you click those things, it's top 10 reasons why you should use a left-handed mouse if you're a right-handed introvert or something like that. Those are the articles that always seem to show up on MSN. However, changing this up isn't a direct path to monetization like that. So, interesting strategies, some things that, kind of always keep my mind and brain, whatever. Also happening with Copilot can now create PowerPoint slides directly from documents. That's actually pretty handy, candidly. So I write a lot of scope documentation for the developers at Stardock and say hey, this is the product we're going to make. This is the update we're going to ship, a scope doc. If you know what a scope doc is, it's a scope doc. So I should take one of these things and chuck it into Copilot and see how it does the slides, because sometimes slides are a little bit prettier. And then what would be super handy is if it did the mock-ups that I would need, which probably could do if I functioned or created the correct function for that. So just something to pay attention to. Now, other things that are happening that you absolutely have to be paying attention to. So Google has found itself on the wrong side of a judicial ruling in all signs indicate as of right now, it's going to take forever and a day for any of this to happen, that Google might get broken up or being forced to sell off certain things. One of the key things that's likely to be spun out, if it all goes through, would be Chrome. Now, Chrome coming out of Google would be a massive change to the internet itself. Probably something we haven't seen, honestly, since the invention of Chrome coming to the market. Now, somebody will argue there's a lot of other things. AI, Chat, GPT is probably a big big one that you could say is comparable, and I respect that. I respect that comparison, but to me, that's different because that's something that runs in a browser. Like the web browser itself has probably been one of the biggest changes to the fundamental infrastructure of the PC, if you will, since the invention of the PC, right? You have the invention of the PC, you have the internet, and the creation of the internet, don't get me wrong, super duper important, but the browser is what made it all possible. And so yes, Chrome was late to the game, but we all know how that worked out. And so Chrome being spun out of the company that created it is a very big deal. Now, who might buy it? OpenAI has said they want to buy it. Hard to say with a straight face. Yahoo has said they want to buy it. You could imagine Facebook would probably be interested, although they might have regulatory problems. Amazon would probably be there as well. It wouldn't surprise me to see Oracle be like, hey, we'll pay big money for Chrome or something like that, because it's a huge asset. Like, right? Be able to go buy the #1 web browser on the planet Earth, very big deal. Apple, most likely not. First off, they have Safari. I don't think they could get away with it. W3C would probably be the open source organization that would make the most sense to take control of this. There's a lot, like, this can go sideways for Google because, right, so how many people keep the default search engine? And you would say, well, Brad, but yeah, if Chrome gets spun out and they change the search engine, people will just change it back. You're correct. People would, and they would by the billions, or yeah, billions, there's enough people, at least not billions, at least hundreds of millions would be changing it eventually, right? However, not initially and not right away, and a certain percentage would just not. Whatever the default changes to, I doubt it's going to go to Bing if OpenAI about it and it was ChatGPT search. Like, people will change back, but some percentage of them will not, and that would be dramatically impacting Google's revenue, because which way they needed search revenue. And so there's like the whatever happens with Chrome has a very real potential to sort of transform the landscape of the internet as we know it. It's a very, very big deal, and I'm not trying to overstate, but like, this will change how the internet functions at a holistic level going forward, because it will change Google and their revenue model. Not that Google's not going to be an advertising company, but their primary core mechanism to get people over there was by building a really good browser. And so people took that good browser and they said, well, the search is good enough or even better, and especially today, it's probably top of the game, right? Until something like Perplexity or ChatGPT search improves upon it. So it's a very, very foundational change to the internet if something like this does in fact materialize. So we'll see. We'll see. Anyways, on to the gaming news. So Oblivion Remastered is out. Now, there's a little bit, if you will, some positive conversation. Is this a remastered or a remake? Because remastered is typically like you take the assets, you just make them shiny and fresh, and then you put them right back where they were. However, they have done some quality of life updates to the game, and first off, I'm not trying to like talk down to this game. This game looks beautiful. They have done a wonderful job and remained faithful to what the core fans mostly like. Some of the quality of life changes maybe perturbed a small fraction, but this was not just we ran an AI upscaler over all this and now it's 4K capable. No, this is like, they really did a good job on this. And so to me, personally, I think it's more of a remake than a remaster because of one, it took a lot of time, which, you know, I guess a remaster could take a decent amount of time. But this feels more, in my opinion, I'd love to know what you guys think, but I think this is more of a remake. Also, Expedition 33 is now out, now available day one on Game Pass. Look, Game Pass has been banging it. Now, initially on the Twitter or Blue Sky, I was like, gosh, Xbox has been like killing it lately with Game Pass. And people are like, well, this isn't an Xbox game. It's like, you know what? That's not the point. The point is I paid $20, let's just say April 1st, and I'm getting to play all of these games again. So at an annualized value, the amount of titles that are now available to me that aren't just like bad games, like these are genuinely good titles, is astonishing. We get Microsoft earnings next week. I hope they give us Game Pass numbers. I think I've been hoping that every single quarter since the last time, which was over a year ago, that we got numbers. But at least like with Black Ops, you've got Doom now coming. You've got Expedition 33. You've got Avowed. You've got Indiana Jones. You've got all these great titles that are in there. And like the nervous part is like, if they aren't seeing growth in Game Pass, like literally what else could they do? Because there are titles there's first-person shooters, there's RPGs, there's JRPGs, there's like everything is in there. There's Blueprints, which I started playing, which is a very interesting puzzler, which I would highly recommend, especially because it's like Game Pass, like it costs you nothing to download. I can't remember the downhill skiing game that I also downloaded and played like an hour or two of. Like, the value in Game Pass right now is phenomenal, which makes me nervous that they're going to try to raise the price because, like, hey, like, it is like, it's, especially once Doom comes out, it's like, come on, man, this is wonderful. This is a good time to be a gamer. Good time to be a gamer. Also, speaking of gamers, according to Matt over on Blue Sky, which Matt is a trustworthy source and he is an analyst. So according to his data and his firm, he says digital only SKUs have accounted for 75% of Xbox Series and 55% of hardware PlayStation 5 units year to date. Keep in mind, there are people mixing this up saying, wow, that's pretty dramatic for this generation. That is from January 1 up until April of whenever they were grabbing data. So still, that's surprising, but not surprising because, right, people are buying digital games. 75%. Also, keep in mind they just launched all digital versions. Finding the disc version, especially on the Xbox side, is becoming more rare and harder to find. PlayStation side, it's still like relatively easy, but it's 50-50. So yeah, nobody's surprised that digital is winning over physical media. So even though the Switch is realistically going that route, yes, they still sell the cards, but you're still downloading the game. And so, yeah, not all that shocking, at least from my perspective. So on to the questions of the week. We got a handful of these in the hopper, including Mary Jo Foley dropping a note that says, why did P3, so P3 is Phil Spencer on Twitter, from Xbox, just add me on Blue Sky. I'm not even kidding. Or maybe it's Copilot that did this. Inquiring minds want to know why, Brad. Why? Mary Jo, I think this is your coming out and telling everybody that you're switching over to gaming journalism. No longer that boring Microsoft Enterprise stuff. Although I still like the Enterprise stuff. But we'll just call it boring Microsoft Enterprise stuff just for this podcast. So I think you just need to come forward and tell us your gaming handle, Mary Jo. I'm sure you've got a positive KD on Black Ops, and you've probably got some pretty sweet build outs on Minecraft. It's time to come clean. It is time to come clean. Adam J says, Brad, I am in the market for a new laptop. Should I go ARM or should I go Intel AMD for my next device? Well, the big question here is, are you planning to game on your laptop? That is, and I'm not saying that you can't game on ARM, but the GPU side on the x86 from getting an NVIDIA chip or AMD GPU is going to be significantly better. So here's how I start to break this down. Look at the apps you need to use. And like realistically, and I don't just mean the browser, but like, do you need video editing? Do you need AutoCAD? Do you need like fully fledged Photoshop? If you still need those classic heavy apps, I would definitely get x86. Just not because, again, they can't do ARM and there's not stuff available. It's just that you're going to be more on that bleeding edge. So you're going to have more hiccups and more and less optimized applications, if you will. If you don't need those things and you're like, yeah, I'm just browsing the web, posting on Reddit, checking out Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram from the web, I would get an ARM box. I would. I am biased towards the Surface hardware. I have a Surface Laptop 7 Intel iteration. It's wonderful. It is wonderful. I'm sure the ARM flavor is just as good. My only complaint is realistically, I have the, I want to say Obsidian, but it's black. And so it shows grease a little bit on only the keys, not on the actual metal. So just keep that in mind. But that's how I would break it down at the end of the day. Josh says, Brad, are you going to get a new Elite Series controller? Are you still holding out? So after my Elite Series 2, it's not dead, but it's broken. So the difference here is dead meaning like it doesn't turn on, doesn't do whatever. Broken meaning it's broken, like the thumbsticks and everything have just deteriorated and whatever. So I've been holding on and just using the classic Xbox Robot White Peasant, and I've been fine with it. Realistically, my KD in Black Ops has not suffered from just using that, so I'm holding out right now. Although the Doom new series, Elite Series 2 Doom controller does look pretty good. Looks pretty good, and I'm definitely going to be playing the Dooms. Mr. PKI coming in with a double dose of questions. So let's drop it and wrap up this week. He says, what about all these Entra lockouts that were mentioned a few days ago? Did you get hit with that one? We I should say Stardock did not. Stardock does use Entra ID. I am actually candidly not familiar with the lockouts that actually occur, because that would be very bad news. So for those who are like, what the heck is Entra ID? That was previously Azure AD. They rebranded probably so they could raise the price, or somebody made an argument. It was like, it's not really Azure anymore, Active Directory, because it's Azure, and we've added security things, which aren't on the on-prem version. So we got to change its name. And so they probably did. Oh gosh, Mr. PKI holding me steady to this one. He says, ending question of the week. Have you finished Indiana Jones yet to be ready for the upcoming Dune release? I have not. I'm close. I would say, I would estimate I'm 75% of the way through. I did play probably another 40 minutes or so last week. And so I probably will finish it. It's the problem is it's also on my alt account, which is another problematic thing that I shouldn't have done. Because I have two accounts, because I am not a smart person. Not a smart person, just a dedicated whatever. So, anyways, wraps it up. Somehow I moved the mouse over here. Look at this. Look at this big thing. Look how big I keep the cursor. First off, I'm getting older, so that's one reason. But because I move this thing around and I use an app called Multiplicity, which I guess whatever clarification, that's an app that my company makes that I help develop. Across this device and a couple others, and these other screens that I'm pointing at right now are actually a completely different computer, are pretty far away. I realized I said, if I make that mouse cursor really big, it'll be so much easier to see when I'm sitting 6 feet away from a monitor to know exactly where it is. So anyways, that's why when people ask, why is it so jumbo? It's like, it's pretty jumbo-y. It's a jumbotron. Anyways, it's been a pretty good week. Hopefully all of you had a wonderful week. We will be back next week with Microsoft earnings, so make sure to keep it subscribed here, because the BS on this channel is me.